September 5th, 1995. My name is Dave Snyder. I'm the park historian for Apostle Islands National Lakeshore here in Bayfield, Wisconsin. We're visiting today with Doris Bush. Doris is the widow of Ed Bush, who in the 1950s was the contractor for Lullaby Furniture Company of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Ed was hired as a contractor to remove the logs to cut the timber from Outer Island. And the timber from the island was used for veneer for the baby furniture for Lullaby Furniture Company. And so Doris is here and her daughter Janelle Bush, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their husband and father and a little bit about Ed's involvement with the logging industry. Doris, where do you live now?
I live in Rochester, Minnesota.
Okay. When you what do you know approximately what years that Ed was involved with logging on Outer Island?
No, I guess no, I don't really.
Okay, my calculations is somewhere looks like between 51 and 58, somewhere in there.
It must have been somewhere in there because he died in 1960.
Okay. How old was Ed when he died?
44.
So he was born about 1916, or?
Yeah,
1916?
whatever that figures out to.
What did, where was he a native of?
He was a native of Weyerhaeuser, Wisconsin.
Okay. And was he involved in logging his whole life?
No, not really. In the service, he was in the Army and he was in the Engineer Corps. And that's kind of seems to me when he got interested in caterpillars and doing things with them. Well, he was in the CCC when he was young, but he was manning towers and hooking up electricity, from pole to pole and stuff, and he, what do you call that?
Kind of a lineman?
Yeah, kind of that sort of stuff.
Do you know where he was stationed at the CCC?
I think it was at Glen Flora, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did, when was it that he learned to fly?
He learned to fly before I knew him, and I met him in about 1938. No, 30. I met him when I was in high school.
Yeah, it's a cradle robber.
Yeah. I was a sophomore when I started going with him.
So you're about 16 and he was about 23?
He was 8 years older than I was.
Oh, yeah, okay. Huh.
Yeah.
What did your parents think of that?
They were upset. He was too old, they said. But
then were you married before the war?
no, we were married during the war. We
During
were
the war.
married in 1942.
42.
And he had gone into service, and I went down to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and we were married there.
You were all of 18, right?
Yeah.
Did you go down alone and get married, or did your parents come down? Or?
No, I went.
Neat.
Scared to death. Never been on a train before.
So no big wedding, no reception.
Well, we had a small wedding. We had attendance, of course, and then we had a dinner together, and that was about it. We were married in a church, and that was in 1942.
Sure.
You had a pretty blue suit, I remember, in the
Yeah.
wedding pictures.
Yeah.
And did Ed where did he serve in the Army? Did he go overseas?
No, not really. He was in the South in Arkansas and Alabama, and then he was in the Aleutian Islands for a year or two. I'm not sure.
So he got to know Alaska a little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah. Probably at the same time they were running that Alaska Highway up.
I don't know
It
about
wouldn't have gone there, but
no,
but
no. It was after the Russians had gotten onto the Aleutians. They did invade. He was on Adak, and that's the farthermost island out. What's the connection between the farthermost islands out in the Aleutians and then the Apostles?
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know.
Islands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so then it was, I know in 46, it was right after the war that the Lullaby Company bought Outer Island. And it sounds like it was about 5 or 6 years later that Ed came up.
Could be.
Did Ed get then back, where were you living? Were you living in Ladysmith?
We
Or
were living
Weyerhaeuser,
in
or-
Ladysmith, and he had a logging operation around Tony in, I don't know whether it was a state forest or a federal forest or what the heck it was, but I know we had to have a cruiser to come and check out what lumber to cut and so forth. So he was in logging before that.
Right after World War II, when he got out,
Yeah.
he got into logging.
Yeah.
And so he was used to being a manager and
Oh
running
yeah.
equipment.
Yeah, and he did at that time. Of course, he was doing a lot of the stuff himself, the sawing and so forth.
Did you have a role in it as far as being a bookkeeper or anything like this, or?
Well, I guess I did, yeah, more or less.
Okay.
I was not much of a bookkeeper, but he was less than of a
Okay.
bookkeeper. So, yeah.
Okay. Did so somewhere in the early 50s, Ed his services were secured by Lullaby Furniture Company. Had he worked for Lullaby before?
No.
Okay, so he must have heard about this or something and applied. Or
I don't know how that came about. I really don't. And I don't remember ever hearing, actually, just that I'm going up to Outer Island and log up there, and that's what he did.
Did in the early when you were first married, did you fly with him much?
Oh yeah, we used to go fishing contests and hop from one fishing contest to the other. You know, in the lakes around Wisconsin, he had skis on, and we'd land on one lake and see what was going around, and well, if it got boring, and then we'd hop to another one because there were always fishing contests all over.
Did you ever
Flying breakfast.
did you ever
Yeah.
learn to fly?
No, I would keep it straight and level once in a while, and that's about all I could do. I had no desire really to learn to land and take off.
Yeah. What did you say about breakfast?
Oh, there were flying breakfasts.
Oh yeah, we used
Oh.
to go to those quite a bit.
Okay.
In
And they
different
had that
towns.
Civil Air Patrol get-togethers, and they were both members of that.
So you had no fear of flying then?
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
So do you still fly?
I never get a chance anymore.
Okay, but if you were going to go to see your daughter in California, that wouldn't.
Now, in my old age, it kind of bugs me. Once I get on, I'm all right. But thinking about it bugs me a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
And big planes, of course, there's so much difference between big planes and small ones too.
Did any of your kids learn to fly?
No.
Ground school and stuff.
There, I think most of them are interested in it. At least I know Ken was at one time, and he's still interested in planes. Not necessarily small planes and flying them, but
Well, today it's a real expenditure to buy a plane and to keep it. Was
I
it then? Because today you would think somebody pretty wealthier that has really put their money aside for a plane.
I think that was the attitude then too. And along with needing it for his business, he loved it. You
Yeah.
know. It fit right in for him because he wanted to fly so badly. And hey, I can get a plane to go to the Outer Island, and I get business expense.
Did he have his own plane prior to that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can't quite remember. I think he had an interest in one with somebody at
Okay.
one point.
But he looked at that Outer Island thing as a real opportunity to get some.
I kind of think
his
so.
own plane. His other logging jobs probably were closer to home, and
Yeah.
you saw him more.
Yeah.
So, how was that being separated for a couple of years most of the year?
Well, I think I kind of resented it because he would be home on weekends, and then he'd be so busy getting supplies ready and catching up on his laundry and stuff that I thought, that's just kind of a jip, and I've got a whole responsibility of the kids, and I think I had my resentments, but then I got so used to it that that was it.
And because it was a year-round operation, he was
Not
gone.
really.
It wasn't. It was. Well, was he home a part of the year more than other times?
Oh yeah, in the summertime.
Okay.
Because see, in the summertime, then he would clear land and build roads. He built some road up in the federal forest up north of Isabella, Minnesota. Yeah.
Oh, so even those were far away, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you saw him more in the summertime.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then you and Ed had 4 kids.
Yeah.
You have Janelle's the oldest, and
Yeah.
then who's next?
Patty, she's in California, and Kenny.
Ken.
He's in Minnetonka, and Susan.
Sue. Okay.
She's in St. Paul.
Well, did you ever? How many times did you go out to Outer Island?
Oh, I was out there. We used to try to go out there on holidays like 4th of July weekend and take the kids. There were about 3 or 4 planes, people that had planes, and they'd take their families. They'd pile the kids in the back and fly out there and stay at the camp. The kids were in the bunkhouse, and, well, the parents too, I guess. And we used the kitchen facilities and make our meals.
The men weren't out there at that time then? The other loggers?
No.
Okay, so the camp was pretty idle in the summer, probably because of mosquitoes.
Yeah, I think generally, and the fact that he had other things to do during the summer with his equipment.
So you just used the other facilities, and was that pretty fun?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to the lighthouse, and there was one rock out on the cliff. The camp was more or less near the cliff, and there was one rock that was hollowed out, and it would fill up with water from the waves splashing up, or if it rained, and the kids would call that their bathtub, and they'd go fooling around in that.
Neat.
Yeah, we loved it.
Do you remember it as being excessively buggy or anything, or?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
No.
I have memories of that.
Do you? You kind of pass
getting
over
sick
that.
on the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I remember that. We made Kool-Aid and gum. We made it in a galvanized bucket. And I don't know whether anybody else got so sick, but Janelle got really sick.
Because it had iron or rust in it or something?
Well,
or?
no, it was that galvanizing.
Oh, I see. It came off.
And the Kool-Aid just ate it
zinc
up.
poisoning.
Ah.
Yuck.
Talk about scared. We were scared when she got so sick.
Well, did you have much he couldn't write. There was no way to get mail back and forth. But he would see you every other, when he would bring the people back and forth from Ladysmith.
Oh, yeah.
You'd see him a little often, more often probably than some of the other wives saw their husbands, maybe.
Could be, yeah.
What, every 2 weeks or so, or?
Oh, I thought he was home pretty much every week.
Every week, okay.
Maybe once in a while it would be a 2-week period, but usually it was every weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, didn't you spend time up there?
I spent time up there several times. One time when Ole Iverson was cooking, his wife, or he got sick or something, I can't remember. But his daughter and I went, Ed volunteered me to help her. And we went up and we were the cooks. My gosh, I never cooked so much in my life, They said that there was about 15, 16 men up there. I swear there were more, because I had never made a pie crust in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had to make the pie crust, and I made about 10 to 12 pies. It was the best crust I ever made.
Really?
No, but 10 pies, how many people is that,
Huh.
Of course, they probably ate 2 pieces apiece, too. But
Now you don't even eat pie that often. I mean, I like pie, but I hardly ever have pie, so.
Well, you had to have cake or pie, or and pie especially, because they ate heartily. Meat and potatoes and dessert.
Do you remember the guys being, well, I would imagine they're your neighbors and stuff too, but were they pretty polite and stuff, or?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, yeah.
So. No, I didn't know any of the men, really. I knew a few that came to the house, like Cliff Roberts, and once in a while one of the guys would come to the house for something, or they'd be around helping Ed fix some equipment on our place, and they'd be coming in for meals or something with him, and other than that I didn't know them that well.
Were any of his men like his right-hand men that you knew real well? None of them. They were all pretty much people he hired from, you said, Bruce or some of those other little towns, outlying
Yeah.
towns.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. There were brothers from Weyerhaeuser. Andy Olesiak was one, and I don't know whether it was Stanley, probably Olesiak, and Buck Brabitsky, and you know, that's a Polish community.
Sure.
You can probably tell, but yeah. There were some from Weyerhaeuser, there were some from Bruce, there were some from the Glen Flora, Tony area.
Okay. How do you spell Tony? How do you spell Tony?
Tony.
Yeah,
That's where Christic, I think, was from.
Okay. So you listened to the story earlier today about was it Lyle Yancey? That was
Yeah.
a log had fallen on him?
Yeah.
And did that bring back memories of that, or did you?
Yeah, I remember that. I wasn't aware. Maybe I was so tied up in my own stuff that I thought he had just broken a leg. But I remember Ed being very concerned about him. And so maybe he didn't tell me how bad it was. You know, I don't know. I can't quite figure that out.
When you went out there on the 4th of July, did you ride around in vehicles? I mean, did you go for a ride in the evening in a car or anything? Do you remember any?
I don't remember
you
cars.
abandoned us.
Huh? Huh?
I told you abandoned us, remember, as little kids?
Oh, yeah, we left them in the bunkhouse.
We thought we were abandoned
I don't
for, like,
believe that, but I think you're thinking of
Isabella, Minnesota?
Isabella.
I don't.
but Edna, well, where did we go then? Well, there's no place to go on the
Well,
island.
Dick Carrier said that there were a pretty extensive road system, and he was a Coast Guardsman out there at this time, and he said that you could go 30, 40 miles an hour on those roads, and he said he would come
Really?
down and ride around, you know. With
I don't
some of the
remember
guys.
that part.
So.
I was probably stuck in camp taking care of kids.
And watching those videos, there's in addition to logging trucks, I've seen at least 2 different pickups and a car, and one of those cars is still out there. It's a 40 Ford Coupe, and it's still there.
I remember riding in that one.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah,
See,
from the
I don't
airport
remember
to
that
the,
stuff.
when we landed. I remembered it because it was mildewy smelling.
Oh,
And as
I
a little
suppose.
kid, and being in this car that was all, in the back was all kind of covered up. You know?
I don't remember that.
Once you land on that airport and then get a ride on up, did you remember, do you remember Ed Erickson at all?
I remember the name. I think I know I've met him, but I never saw much of him.
He lives here in Bayfield.
Yeah.
And he has been the mayor here. He's about 86, and he
Oh,
still
yeah.
runs that outer island. That's what they
Oh,
call it now.
really?
He still
Yeah.
runs that, and he does a lot of dock work with it and such,
Oh.
But he would have remembered your husband.
Oh, I imagine.
Did he make a pretty good living doing that?
Yeah, we lived pretty well. I don't know. I never wanted for anything. I mean, we weren't really affluent, I don't think, but it was a living.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Doris, when you would go out there, at times, if you were by boat, going out on the LCT or that landing craft, how did you get up onto the shore?
I don't remember going out there by boat.
Oh,
I'm sorry to say.
But Janelle was telling me that you got raised on that.
Oh, well, yeah, we came. Let's see.
Why did you go out there in the first place?
I don't know, get away from you guys, I guess. No, Dorothy Jarrett, my friend from Ladysmith, and I just wanted to go up there. We always liked the place, and just wanted to be there.
Didn't you want Dad to buy some part of it?
Well, I was always hoping that we could somehow acquire it, and it would be ideal set up for a resort because of the little lake in the
At the south
island.
end,
Yeah, and the cliffs, and it's just a beautiful place, you know. And so anyhow, Dorothy and I were just going to go up there and vacation, like. So, and I think for some reason, Ole and Mert were there, the cooks. Now, I'm not sure of that, or at least they were there for a couple of days while we were there. I just don't remember that. And I'm not sure how we got up there. Ed might have flown us up. And then but we had to come back on the LST, and that posed a problem for the crane operator because I was pregnant with my last little girl. Sue, yeah, and they didn't know how to get me on the LSTs, but it had to be on the crane, by the crane. So they said, well, you'll just have to hang on and put your feet on each side, one on each side of the hook. Well, I don't know, for some reason or other, it really didn't bother me that much. And so they did, and they landed me on a load of logs. And I had to climb down, which wasn't all that bad. Of course, I was huge. But my friend, they told her, no, open your eyes, don't shut your eyes, or you'll get dizzy. And so, of course, the minute she got on that dumb hook, she closed her eyes and stuck her foot out. I mean, just totally wrong. And she was scared to death.
But she didn't fall off.
She didn't fall off, no. And that's how we got back.
Do you ever see that woman anymore?
Dorothy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, on occasion I get back to Lady Smith.
And so she still would talk about...
Oh, we have talked about some of the goofy things we did,
yeah. So you two went up there alone without your kids and
without kids, without husbands, and I, like I said, I don't know. They must have just been still loading up logs to haul them. I don't know what season of the year it was even. Actually, it had to be in spring because Sue was born in May, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still a trail, or there's a trail that goes from. It's on one of the old roads. But it goes up to the lighthouse. Do you remember if you walked to the lighthouse?
Yeah, we walked to the lighthouse.
Okay. So you didn't take a boat
So
over
I
there.
don't remember too much about cars being there. Otherwise, I probably would have favored that.
Yeah, I don't know if the road actually went up to the lighthouse, but the road went south, like down towards that airstrip and such. Do you remember the various buildings? There was a cook shack.
Yeah, and I thought there were 2 bunkhouses and Ed's office.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to remember.
Part of those buildings are still there. The cook shack is still partially standing, and you can look in and you can see some of the things right out of this picture. The two bunkhouses have pretty much fallen in, and I don't think the pool table was ever removed. I think the pool table is laying in there under some rubble.
Probably.
And then Ed's office is still partly standing, and there's like a little window in there that. It was a parts cage or something like that. It's behind like barbed wire, but then there's like these little, like a post office box or a little place to put parts in or something. So it's either to sort his receipts or something, or else it was to. But it's walled off and kept separate from the other things, and I imagine locked or something, But it's almost like a little parts bin or warehouse.
Might have been something to do with the logs, maybe, or.
Counting them?
Well, that or keeping track of what batch of logs came from what section or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
And then there's also a building that was used to repair the trucks, and that's fallen in. But there's at least like basically the mess hall and the cook's area, and then the 2 bunkhouses, and Ed's office, and then the garage.
Oh.
And then there's a bunch of old other things laying out there, like part of the gas pump and part of a truck to fill fuel up, and then his truck. And there's a 52 Plymouth wagon. There's a 40 Ford.
I don't remember a wagon
There's at least 2 cars and about 3. There's 2 cars and about 3 different trucks out there. And a root cellar.
Huh. Well, was there still I imagine that's gone down. There was kind of a hangar at the end of the airstrip.
I've never hiked down to the airstrip, so I don't know if
that's the
hangar's
most
there.
interesting place because that little lake isn't far from there. And when we would land with the families, when we were going there for 4th of July, we'd get out of the planes and immediately start picking wild strawberries and go to the little lake.
Oh, neat! Yeah. That's a little lagoon, and it's and I've been on the spit and seen the lagoon, but I've not actually gone up. Never gone up to the airstrip, so I wonder what is left of that. I don't know.
Probably nothing much because it was all all open in the front end.
Did Ed like what he did?
Oh, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Otherwise, I don't think he would have worked so hard at it.
Now, he probably worked for the Jaruzinskis and Buchholz for 6-7 years at least. Did he have a good working relationship with the Lullaby people, as far as you know?
I don't know how much contact he actually had with them. I don't remember. I mean, maybe he had more than I know of. If they went up there, I wouldn't know. But evidently, I don't know of any disagreements or anything.
Okay.
I just wouldn't know.
You didn't know the Lullaby people yourself?
No.
And did you have a Lullaby crib for your girls?
Probably not. They were too expensive. Maybe if I had known. I don't know.
Your husband cut the wood for him. So.
Yeah, I know, but they were all
surplus Army bunks when we were kids.
When you were little, yeah. After you got out of cribs, but they only made cribs at that time, you know, and other furniture.
Well, Ed died in 1960, but I think he had already quit for Lullaby. He'd already quit at Outer. What did he do after Outer?
More road building, a lot of road building. I think after that was when he had that contract up in the federal forest.
Up at Isabella, Minnesota.
Yeah. And he would do you know, build roads for farmers, clear land for them. Not so much in the last years of that though. Mostly road building, and he'd like to get good big contracts like with that forest deal.
So he would watch for government contracts and different contracts.
That type of thing.
So he sounds like he's pretty good businessman then. I mean, it sounded like he was at least shrewd enough to know that these things were coming up. And
I don't think he was as shrewd as he probably should have been, but he was. Well, you heard the guys; they thought he was a good guy, and maybe he could have been shrewder for his own gain, but I don't think I don't think he was that kind of a guy.
Was he, the Buck Clausen talks about him being a practical joker and such like that. Was he a pretty happy-go-lucky guy then?
Very serious.
Oh, he was?
But he had, but he had his moments. Yeah, he'd pull funny stuff, you know. This has nothing to do with the island, but one time we were up and he was clearing some woods up north of Weyerhaeuser, and we had the cat up there, and I went up with him. I was picking berries or something, and he said, "Here, get on this thing and steer it over there." And okay, so I got on it, and I looked, and he was on the back of it, and I turned around, and he's gone, and here I am with this caterpillar, big D8 or D7 or whatever they are. And I'm wondering what to do with it, you know. I'm heading towards the woods. And pretty soon he comes swinging through the trees, and then he's standing in front of me. I mean...
Like Tarzan.
Yeah, weird.
Well, he did that to me as a little kid, too. He tried to teach me how to drive with a tractor.
Yeah.
And his way of doing it was to walk in front of the tractor. I'm like 8 or 9 years old, and I'm not heavy enough to get the brakes to work on the tractor.
Yeah.
So I'm practically running my dad down, doing these figure eights on the runways.
Oh, that's neat. So you had an airstrip in your yard at home.
Yeah.
And, well, did you, the story about the Caterpillar tractor sinking, do you know anything about that, or?
I seem to remember something about it, but, I'm not sure.
Do you know if it was raised or not, or if it was?
I don't know. I never heard. I can't remember hearing about it.
Sure.
What about the Chris Craft?
Oh, the Chris Craft. Yeah, he had decided that was I don't know when in the sequence of events, but he had decided to buy this Chris Craft motorboat, and it was gorgeous. You know, it was old-fashioned, but it was all this beautiful wood stuff, and he thought that would be handy for him to haul stuff. And I don't know, we hadn't had it no more than a few weeks, and of course it was dashed against the cliff there under by the camp.
He had it moored there or something?
I think he had it moored some way there.
And the waves knocked the heck out of it?
And they had a storm and just knocked the heck out of it. And we hadn't had it very long, so it was covered by insurance, but just the same, you know, I wanted to ride in it, yeah. And I didn't get a ride.
So he liked toys?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He liked playing. He had a boat. He had a Caterpillar tractor. So he was
Yeah.
like a little boy in hog heaven, sort of. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Neat.
And road graders and
Scrapers.
like little boys use only big ones.
Yeah. Well, and you said a guy named Gordon Sefchek was one of the guys that was a
He was
pilot
one
also.
of the pilots. Yeah.
You think he might still live around Ashland or something?
I heard that they moved out of Ashland into some little town around there, but I don't know
Mhm.
what it is. And I haven't seen him well, he came to Owatonna one time. He was going through and he stopped in one time. And that was,
Gordon
my
was
God,
like
20
pretty.
years ago. So I haven't seen him since.
Now, Ed died in 1960 when he was, you said, 44 years old,
Yeah.
and he was killed in his plane.
Uh-huh.
Was it at an air show or anything like this, or?
No.
You know what my perception is. My perception is when I hear him doing these daredevil things, I'm thinking he's doing loop-de-loops or something,
No.
So it was just a fairly routine, just an accident.
Yeah, he and Daryl Marrier was a friend of his who was a pilot. And I don't know quite how that worked now. Daryl had just flown in from someplace and he wanted to go to Wausau or someplace. And Ed says, well, hop in and we'll go. And I don't know, they never did decide who actually was flying. But they took off.
The dual control little airplane.
Yeah, it was a small plane. And they took off from the runway behind the house. And the next thing, they turned, banked.
To look at the new runway.
That's it. They were checking Ed had just finished a new runway. That's right. I forgot. And they were checking it for straightness. And they were just banking to come back around and check it again. And
it's on Highway 8, and if the plane landed in the ditch, didn't run into the wires, the telephone.
no,
wires
it didn't
that
run
there.
into any
Did the
wires.
engines quit for some reason or stop?
I don't know.
But if you're low and if your plane dies, you don't have any altitude, you don't have any speed, and that's when you have no control.
Evidently, that's what happened. And both of them were expert pilots,
Did you hear it, Doris?
No, I wasn't home. I was at work. I was working in a lawyer's office at that time.
Okay.
And
So you did work outside the home most of
oh yeah,
those years?
at least part-time.
Yeah. And so, how did the news come down to you?
Well, we were having a birthday party for the dentist in that same building that I worked in. It was a bunch of offices. And they came down and got me. And of course, by that time, they had him in the hospital. And
Did the other man, was he killed instantly? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was relatively young, too, with children.
yeah. But I don't know.
I thought your boss drove you out there to get us.
Probably did. I don't remember that.
Yeah, because Janelle was telling me how she and her two siblings were riding their bicycle and saw something happened, and then and who was it that told you that?
Dubois.
Yeah, the photographer.
Oh,
and said, no,
really?
your dad's just in the hospital for a
Yeah.
checkup, or they're taking him in. Yeah.
And we're all going like,
Yeah.
this is serious. But here he had this really kind of unenviable task of telling us that your dad's in that accident, and that what was left of the plane was right there in the road.
Yeah, it was right on the highway.
Yeah.
Do you think, Ed, with the progress with medicine and such now in 1995, if this were to happen 35 years later, do you think he'd have lived from his injuries, or did he have a lot of internal injuries?
He probably, I don't know, but I guess he had so many injuries that they said if he had lived, that he would be either in a wheelchair and have lost both legs, or at least if he had lost one leg, and he was so banged up that really, in his case, is probably as well that he did
Oh,
not.
the kind of active man he was, yeah.
That would have killed
a
him.
torture to him.
Yeah.
Were you able to speak to him much then?
Well, yeah,
the last
I went to
couple
the
days?
hospital, and he said, first thing he said was, who was flying? And I said, I don't know, I thought you were. I don't know. And
so he didn't know who was
he didn't
what.
seem to know.
Yeah.
And when the what was it, the air stuff they investigate?
Civil Air Patrol or I
No,
don't know
it's
whatever.
No, not
Civilian
civil.
Airport,
FAA
Aeronautics
or-
Board, or it's the FAA's variant
Yeah,
of civilians.
yeah. But and they never did come to any conclusion, or what as to why it happened.
Yeah, you have
Because
your
I've got the
theories, yeah.
papers there for that. But anyway, I talked to him and he said, "See if you can get me in Veterans Hospital." And so I said okay, and
Because he thought maybe the care would be better or something.
well, I don't know. Yeah, because
Cheaper,
Ladysmith
sure.
is a very small town, and I think
He knew it was gonna be a long time.
yeah, he must have known that it was going to be a lot of expensive care and stuff. And
So what else did he say?
I can't think.
What about signing things for the business?
Oh, I probably had some stuff that had to be done. Yeah, there's always stuff. I don't remember pretty much anything else, but I remember him saying, "Get me in, see if you can get me into the Veterans."
But he was
Hospital."
conscious. And,
He was conscious. Evidently, he was conscious when they took him out of the plane. He didn't. I don't think he ever lost consciousness.
Poor
They kept
guy.
us waiting around to see if we would be able to see him.
Yeah.
We were able to.
So you were about 36 and had 4 kids.
Yeah.
36,
34.
30.
Dad was 42.
8 years. I was 32. 34. I don't know.
That's
I was
somewhere.
8 years younger than he was. He was 44. What's 8 from 44?
36, and he was 44.
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
I think he was 42 and you were 34.
But you had these 4 little kids, and then she mentioned that there was a recession in 1960, and that you guys had canceled the life insurance or hadn't paid on it. Or
God,
something.
yeah. Well, we were having financial problems, and well, I mean, in that business, you're
Oh,
either
it's-
way up or you're way
Yeah.
down, and
Machinery breaks down. You gotta buy new
Weather.
engines. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
so
There was trouble with the contract with the feds. My dad had gone to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
to talk to the congressman about it.
Huh.
they were trying to renege on because he was late on the contract, I think, and it was because of the weather, and
And the
they
rock.
weren't going to be lenient at all. And he went to D.C. and Congressman Okonski helped
Yeah.
him, and they did get an extension then.
We have a film of that too. That was great.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So anyway, now what was the question?
So anyway, you were
Oh.
pretty wiped out financially
Oh,
with
yeah.
his death.
We had pretty good coverage, but then we sat and talked it over when I can remember this very well, because we were so scared to do it, and on the other hand, we needed some cash right now. And he said, "Well, should we take a chance?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go along with it." And so of course we canceled the policy, and wouldn't you know?
That's awful. So,
It's awful.
Yeah.
Just awful.
It's amazing we're all not insurance agents.
Yeah.
So how much longer did you stay in Ladysmith with the kids?
About 2 years, wasn't it? Yeah, something like that.
And how'd you pick the Nawatana?
I had a girlfriend who had just moved there. She said, "There's all kinds of jobs in this town. Why don't you come?" So I made a trip over there, and there were lots of businesses in Owatonna. It's kind of
And they paid more than $2,000 a year, which
yeah,
was peak in Rescon.
right. And so I found I think I applied at about 4 different places, and I had 4 different offers. Because there's just all kinds of openings at that time.
Your line of work was secretarial.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. This is all. I think I've been out to Outer to the Lullaby Camp a couple times, and one of the fascinating things is seeing that truck in the woods. So
Yeah.
it says Ed Bush Contractors, Ladysmith, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And of course, when I first would see that, we didn't know anything about this man, and now we have talked to the Lullaby family, and we've talked, the Jaroszynskis and the Buchholz, and we've talked to Ed Erickson, who has done that, and now you folks have added a little bit with and the movies you have are going to be just great.
Yeah.
They're really neat.
Do you know that truck though was what stuck us, the kids, when my brother and my sister-in-law and I managed to see that in the 80s. That was so amazing to just be wandering around saying, I think this is where my dad logged, and then seeing a real life
A replica, or not a replica,
that
but
he
a
existed, that we had
relic.
existed, we had that life at one point, and it was
Yeah.
quite different later on. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty different. I think Ken never quite got over that. He was just amazed.
Yeah.
Well, neat. I'm going to end the tape here, and if we
Okay.
think of more things here, I'll turn it back on. But I appreciate you coming and doing this.
No problem.